Hello and welcome to my show Connecting with Saima Parwaz. I hope all of you are doing great and waiting to see my today's guest. As all of us are aware, Canada is going through a rough times. It's been challenging lately. Rising cost of living, housing affordability issues, healthcare pressure, and overall economic uncertainty. In today's show, we will discuss economic updates and housing market with very talented and expert in macroeconomics and financial markets. Welcome to my show.
Thank you.
Yasin, how are you?
Very good, alhamdulillah. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for coming and thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure.
I was following you on different social media platforms for a while, and I was learning every day something from you, and I'm really glad you are here in my show. And tell about yourself to my audience.
Sure, Yasin Nizami. I have been in the technology world for the entire of my career, almost 20 years now. And recently I have, started learning about macroeconomics, financial markets, the banking system, and general investing. And I started, creating content 4 years ago during pandemic when everybody had a lot of time. So that's how I started my social media presence, and over the period of, let's say, 4 years, it has grown quite a bit. So I'm not getting a lot of visibility, and that's why I think you discovered my channel. So that's why I'm here. And yeah, I'm happy to share my insights in terms of the financial markets and economic situation in Canada. And yeah, so looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. And so what we going to discuss? Like, what are the main topics?
So today, I think we're going to discuss the economic situation in Canada right now, as we know that the economy is going through a tough time. We're seeing unemployment is going up. We're seeing GDP is slowing down. At the same time, we are seeing the threats of tariffs from the US and how this is going to impact Canadian economy in general, as well as, of course, the housing market, which is also a major factor of economic growth in Canada. So we will touch upon those topics, and you can ask questions as a follow-up.
So what is the outlook of Canadian economy in 2025?
So the outlook is very weak, as we know that since pandemic, there was a big bump of economic progress as a result of the government stimulus. And this was basically a sugar rush. As that stimulus, expired, and then we're seeing the after effects of that stimulus in the economy. So Bank of Canada, just like every other central bank in the world, they started, hiking rates to kind of control the inflation. But one of the byproduct of doing this is basically inducing a recession in the economy. And this is exactly what we're seeing for the past 2 years. We're seeing the economy is slowing down. GDP is shrinking. And especially when you measure GDP per capita basis in real terms, that has been negative for the past 8 out of 9 quarters. So if you look at the textbook definition of recession, it is. So basically, if you see consecutive 2 quarters of negative GDP growth, that is the definition of
it's just not
recession.
Declared, right?
It's not. It's not officially declared by the government. But if you peel the onion and then you see how much the data is saying, you will realize we are actually in recession. And then at the same time, we see the unemployment is going up. So as per the last reading, it was around 6.9, and RBC predicts it can reach up to 7% pretty soon, maybe like in the next
February or March.
In the next reading, yes. So this is quite significant, right? So as the unemployment is going up, and typically unemployment is a lagging indicator. So that is showing you what happened 2 months ago. We are still seeing a lot of job losses, like Amazon is exiting Quebec market. We saw that news. So that is impacting 1,700 full-time jobs in that province. So all of these job losses are still to be reported. So by the time, let's say, we hit summer, we might see unemployment, hitting 8%. So if you look at that from an outlook perspective, that is looking very weak. Even though Bank of Canada is trying to cut rates aggressively, but it is not helping economy, because in real terms, central banks can only do something, but when it comes to driving economic growth, you need private sector to grow. So what we have seen in the past that all the jobs, majority of the jobs that are being created are created by government in the public sector. So the government is expanding, which doesn't really produce goods and services. So when you look at economy, it is driven by private sector mainly, like the enterprises and commercial and small, medium businesses. They are not growing and they're not producing a lot of stuff because of the economic situation, which is why we're seeing the economy is not growing from a productivity perspective.
So when we see this unemployment, right? But in my surrounding, I haven't seen anyone like who's unemployed. Like how they figure out this?
So they actually run surveys. So they run surveys into the businesses and they ask, okay, questions like how many people have you laid off in the last, let's say, 6 months, and then they actually extrapolate the data across the country. So they contact different businesses, they contact different households as well, and run a survey to kind of understand, okay, what is the overall feedback from the public, both from a household perspective as well as from business perspective, and then they basically plot it on a graph, and that's how they measure, okay, is the feedback that we are getting, is it comparable to last month or is it going up? If it's going up, that means the unemployment from a general
How much it's
perspective
supposed to be like a normal?
It should be around, under 3% in a healthy economy. So if it's going above 3%, that means, and the trend actually is important. So if the trend is staying flat, then we should not be worrying about it, because that means the unemployment is not increasing, right? But if the trend is upward, that means in the next 6 months it's going to continue to go up, right? Because it's a lagging indicator. It looks at the past, what happened in the past. It doesn't tell you what's going to happen in the future, but you can analyze from the trend perspective. The trend is going up. That basically means you are seeing more people being laid off or being jobless in the next 3 to 6 months.
So how can we overcome to this unemployment? Any ideas? What should we do?
I think we as an individual cannot do anything about it, but at the government level, they have to create policies that can help businesses to basically create employment. So what I mean by that is, they have to reduce taxes on businesses and give them an environment where they can basically create more goods and services. So economy is about how much goods and services that we create. The more goods and services that we create in your country, that's how basically the economy runs. Because when the people actually spend money and buy stuff and then go out and then spend money again, that's how the economic engine evolves. So what's happening right now is, as I mentioned, a lot of jobs that are being created in Canada are coming from the public sector, which is government. So government is hiring a lot of people. The problem with that is the government is not a business. It doesn't create any goods and services. So when you compare with government with a small medium business, the small medium business produce stuff, whether they are creating a service-based business like electrician or plumber or hairdresser, for example, or they're creating solid physical products. Maybe they're producing shoes, or maybe they're producing furniture or anything. So when these businesses create goods and services that actually produce the economic activity, versus the government, they are basically bureaucrats and then they're just adding bureaucratic layer in the process. It doesn't really create a lot of productivity in the economy, which is the problem in Canada. So I think what government should do is reduce the government bureaucratic process and then help businesses to actually thrive. And the way they can do it, they can create policies which can give incentive to the businesses or reduce their taxes, give them the environment that they can basically flourish and then go out and then hire people in the economy. So that I think is one of the way that they can help small, medium businesses especially. And small, medium businesses are the backbone of Canada. We look at the larger corporations, they're not really the big pie of the economic activity in Canada. It's the small, medium businesses. I think to some extent, 70% of the economy is actually small, medium businesses in Canada. Like, lawyer office, somebody is, opening up professional services office, like providing plumbing services, electrician services, or providing furniture services. So all of these small medium businesses, they are the backbone of Canada. And unfortunately, for the past, I should say, 5+ years, we're seeing those medium businesses are being closed because of the pandemic.
Even I have seen the factories, warehouses, they are closing down, right?
And I think one of the major reasons is the government reaction towards pandemic. So when the pandemic happened, they actually shut down the economy. They start, giving out those stimulus checks to people, just not to do anything but spend money. But when you spend money and when you not produce anything, this is where the problem starts, right? And that's the reason why we are seeing the economic distortion right now, that all the small medium businesses got out of the business, and those businesses are not coming back.
Yeah, that helped like temporary, but not for a long time, right?
Yeah, because when you close a business, it's very hard for you to come back and then start some from the scratch, because those people, when they shut down their business, they went out and then they start doing something else because they have to sustain themselves, right? So you cannot expect them to come back and then do that business again, because it takes a lot of time and effort to establish a business. So I think that's really the big problem in Canada, where the small medium businesses are struggling and they're not being profitable because of higher taxes, uncompetitive environment. Like if you compare this with Canada, with America, US, they have a much more competitive environment where business can survive and then basically expand going forward. Here, unfortunately, is a very tough environment for business to survive, and this is why I think we're seeing a lot of private sector jobs are being laid off, and it's hard to compete in that environment.
And I think they should bring immigrants from different countries, but who can build the factories or who can have start a good businesses, right?
Exactly. I mean, that's another issue, right? So the immigration policy in Canada has been very, I should say, unproductive in the last, let's say, 2-3 years.
Yeah, because they were all young kids, right?
Yeah.
Mostly.
So what happened was, in the past, Chinese immigrants were actually bringing a lot of capital in Canada, and because of those political issues with the U.S. and China, the Chinese immigrants are not coming here anymore. I mean, they're still coming, but they're not coming in that quantity where they used to be before 2020. So in order to fill that gap, Canadian immigration actually shift their focus onto Indian immigrants, and especially the international students, because that's also another source of money for them, right? So when the students comes in, especially the international students, they pay higher fees. They of course come and then spend money in the economy in terms of paying rent, paying for transportation, buying clothes and grocery and everything. So it actually adds up in the economy. But what happened was the proportion of that international student was quite high, and yes, it helped the economy a little bit, but then it created other problems in the society. As we are seeing, crime rate is increasing. Unaffordability is increasing as well, and we're seeing a lot of the low-paid jobs are being captured by them, and the local population, like high school students who want to do some part-time work in the summer, they could not even get the job, right? So that's other side of the impact because of the immigration policy that we're seeing right now. So I think that's also did not help in terms of building the economy, because what we imported was international students which are only doing low-paid work, which is not productive, right? They're not here to kind of build businesses and basically create factories or private businesses to kind of sustain. So that actually was another reason why we are seeing economic distortion in Canada.
Dear Canadians, I know there is so much fear out there, but we are strong and resilient. And that's what we are discussing in today's show. And so, Yasin, I have another question for you. People are really scared in these days because of the tariff, the small businesses, even the individuals, like what's going to happen. So what do you think? What's going to happen if if these tariffs going to come? So how are we going to face?
I think, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, is the tariffs are actually the negotiation tactic by President Trump. I think he's trying to apply pressure on the Canadian government to kind of renegotiate the NAFTA agreement, which became something else in his last term. I think he's putting a lot of pressure on them to have an upper hand in terms of negotiation. That's my opinion. Now, he could also implement those tariffs, right? There's no doubt about that, because I think he did something similar in his last term. And he's talking about applying 25% blanket tariff across all products coming from Canada. If that happens, I think that will be a disaster move from Canadian economy, because when you apply 25% tax on all the exports from Canada, that means Canadian exports will become uncompetitive in US, right? So if I'm the US citizen and I have to pay 25% more to buy Canadian oil, for example, or Canadian lumber, then it's very expensive for me. So I should rather switch to another provider, maybe somebody selling from Mexico or Venezuela, right? So that will actually hurt Canadian exports. And when the exports decline, then of course the companies who are producing that stuff will actually face tough situation, and they may have to lay off people because of the reduced exports. And then the other thing is the Canadian government is also, as a response, saying that they will also apply a retaliatory tariff on US products. Now, if that happens, then not only the Canadian products will get expensive, the US product that we buy, they will get expensive as well. So imagine in the winter, we import a lot of food from US, right? Vegetables and fruits and everything, because we can't grow it here in Canada in the winter.
That's how the economics work, right?
Exactly. So if they do that, then we Canadian will have to pay even more to buy stuff that is coming from Canada, from the US. So I think from both sides of the country, the average people will suffer because they have to pay more for the stuff that they buy on daily basis. But at the same time, the companies who are actually importing and exporting stuff will have to face a lot of challenges, because if the business drops, because what's going to happen is these tariffs are going to destruct the demand. So if things becomes 25% expensive, then naturally you will spend less, you will buy less of that stuff. So when the demand gets destructed, then of course the company's P&L will be impacted. You know, they will also start laying off people to structure the operational expense. And this will be basically another blow to Canadian economy, right? So I hope this doesn't happen.
Which is already suffering, right?
Exactly. So my opinion is, I think Trump is using this as a negotiation tactic. Hopefully they will come to the table and agree to the terms. I think what he's saying is control your border and control your drugs trafficking. Otherwise face 25% tariff. I think that's his demand. I think both sides should sit on the table and then discuss and then agree to that term.
I think he's doing something with all the countries.
Exactly, he's using this as a negotiation tactic, right? So he's pushing Mexico at the same time, Venezuela as well, and also China, right? So he's saying China will also face 100% tariff for the product that they import into the U.S. But the fallout of that is the U.S. citizens will actually pay more. So this will be more inflationary for the U.S. because they will have to spend more money to just buy normal stuff that they buy on daily basis. So I think he's using this very randomly and using it as a negotiation tactic to put pressure on the opposing party so that they can have an upper hand when it comes to negotiation. So that's my hope and opinion. But it's also possible that he can apply blanket tariff on Canada. If that happens, then it's going to be a very another blow for the Canadian economy.
I hope not, but we can think for positive, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Hi friends, so we are going for a short break and I'll see you after the break. This is definitely 100% a buyer's market. If you guys if there are any of your friends or loved ones or you who wants to buy the house or a condo or detached or any sort of housing, you guys can contact to me or any of your realtor because this is a good time to buy. That's what we're going to discuss because in my opinion, in few months in summer, the housing will be a little bit up. There will be, the prices will go not too much jump, but there will be some different. And so what do you think about it, Yasin? People should buy. Is this a good time to buy? People should buy.
Yeah, this is very difficult question to answer because it really depends upon your individual preferences, right? So I always get asked this question, and the next question that I ask is, are you buying for yourself? Or
Yeah,
are
if
you
it's a
buying it as
principal
an
residence,
investment
right?
property, right?
Yeah.
So if it's a primary residence, then of course it's a different question because then you're actually buying it to live in that property. That means your kids are going to grow in the property, right? So you are going to provide shelter for your family, and you will be probably living in the next 10 years in that property, right? So those things will completely change the scenario, right? And sometimes you don't really see the financial impact of it because your emotions are also attached to your primary residence. So I always say, okay, if you're buying for a primary residence, then don't think too much. Buy what you can afford.
Yeah.
Okay, because you have to pay rent anyway, right? If you go out and rent a property, a 2-bedroom condo will cost you $3,000 a month minimum, okay, to start with. And if you rent like a 3-bedroom townhouse, this will be around $3,500. So why not buy a property and then live in the property for the rest of your life versus paying rent? I think that's a very easy way to kind of look into that. Now, if it's an investment property, then it's a different question. Then you have to look into the financial impacts, the overall gains and the taxation, and of course all the headaches that comes along with the tenant, right? So then you can see, okay, what are the other options? If I don't invest into real estate, do I have another option as an alternative? I would say yes. Stock market is another one. You can also diversify your investment into different stock portfolios. Like you can buy mutual funds, you can buy individual stocks. There's a lot of choices available in that investing game. So I think it really depends. If you're buying it for yourself, then I should say don't think too much, and rather than going through paralysis analysis, you just buy and then live in that property for the rest of your life. I think because at some point you have to have your own place. You can when you're getting older, you definitely need a place of your own where you can comfortably live for the rest of your life. But if you're investing into real estate as a second property, then of course it's a different question. Then you have to understand that the financial impacts of that, and because you have to pay taxes, you have to pay tax on the rental income, you have to bear all the wear and tear, the tenant issues, and then you have to pay mortgage as well. So if the numbers make sense, why not go in and buy a rental property? If it doesn't make sense, then you should look at other options.
So for the investment property, right? For my opinion, it's like detached or bungalows are the best. The condo in this market, especially the condo, is not giving any. It's not a good option for the investment, right?
So I think it depends if you are looking for appreciation or cash flow, right? So in my opinion, I think when you buy a rental property, you always prioritize your cash flow situation. So the property has to produce cash flow for you to sustain. So what I mean by cash flow is, when you pay off your mortgages, you pay off property taxes, any wear and tear, and outside of all of that, if you pocket something out of rent, then it's a positive cash flow property, right? Then numbers make sense, you should continue to do that. But if you're not covering your expenses with the rent, that means you're paying from your own pocket to make up the
Which
payments.
many people are doing in these
Exactly.
days, right?
Then it's a negative cash flow situation. Then it's not an investment, it's a liability. So in that case, of course, you should not be looking at it because you're actually paying from your pocket to just sustain that property. So rather than do that, you actually go in and invest into stocks, because that will give you the appreciation and dividends going forward. If you buy, let's say,
But
a
in
mutual
that,
fund.
people, they should have a good knowledge about, right?
Yes and no. So there's two things, right? So if you're actively trading, then of course you need a lot of information, knowledge to kind of trade successfully. But if you are just doing passive investment, then you buy, very famous mutual funds like S&P 500 or Nasdaq that mirrors those indices. Then you just, keep it for a long time. So you don't have to actively trade that, because when you buy a big mutual fund, it has billions of dollars worth of portfolio in there, and you can contribute monthly. Let's say $100 per month you can contribute into that, and just keep it, let's say, for 10-15 years. Don't do anything, don't touch it, leave it there. On average, the stock market has been producing 10+% returns annually, right? So of course, there will be some ups and downs in the middle, but then when you take an average for the next 10 years, it should be able to generate 8 to 10% return annually. So when you compound that, then of course it gives you better returns without any headache, right? So you're not thinking about tenant issues, you're not thinking about paying taxes, because you only pay tax on the stock when you sell it, right? So on unrealized gains, there is no tax. So just keep it there for the long term passively, and then that should be able to give you better returns as well. But sometimes people actually love real estate, right? So there are different kind of people, right? Some people love to manage real estate. If you love it, then of course you can do that, right? So some people, they don't want to handle tenant issues. So there's a lot of different type of people, and then their ability to maintain properties is not there.
And
so
how
for
much
them,
stress someone can take.
exactly. And oftentimes, you find a very difficult tenant who doesn't, want to give you rent or want to leave your property, then you're stuck.
You stuck, yeah.
When you go through the eviction process, it takes months before you can get the eviction order done. So think about that as well, because that's part of the game. So if you're going into real estate business, you will have to face these challenges as well.
So there is any way to be rich faster?
There's no quick way to be rich. I think all it requires is consistency and patience. So first, you work hard, you build up your savings, and then you invest that saving into an asset that is going to perform over the long term, right? Oftentimes people are just looking for a quick gain. Like, I want to double my money in next 2 years. It's possible, but that percentage is very low. Oftentimes people go into crypto, right? And they just want to double their money overnight. Yes, some people have done it, but 90% of people have lost the money as well. So I think if you are working hard, you're saving your money by working hard, you should look into some reliable investment opportunities. Stocks is one of them. Like if you buy a mutual fund like SPY or any indices that mirrors Nasdaq, just keep it there for next 10+15 years, and you should be able to get decent returns.
Got it. So what was it, Trump's coin? My family, they bought some too.
It was gambling, to be honest. Like there's nothing more than just gamble. And there's a lot of, they call meme coins. Meme coin is basically a fun culture. Like, people just want to, have fun and then create something which is an indication of fun. For example, there was another one called Pepe the Frog, right? So it's a frog, which was a meme in I think in late 90s and 2000 in the internet, and they actually created a coin for that, and they just want to trade it for fun, and that became famous, and then people were just trading for money as well, right? So it becomes like a gambling thing, but it's there's nothing behind those meme coins. It's just for fun. It's a fun culture. And it came out of the new generation, right? So if you look at the investing world, a lot of people are like very sophisticated, looking into the financials of the company and then invest. But this new generation is coming up with this fun culture, which can also turn into monetization somehow. But again, it's all gambling because there is nothing backing it up. Like when you look into the stock, you look at their financial statements, profit and loss, and then you know that this is a successful revenue generating business. There's nothing behind meme coins, right? It's just gamble. It's just piece of thing that people are just trading for money. So it can go up, it can go down next day as well.
There are many immigration changes in Canada. and many people, they are thinking to move out, and the rental market is actually affecting. What do you think, Yasin?
I think immigration changes are political pressures. I mean, one thing is sure that Canada cannot run without immigration.
Of course.
And the reason is if you look at the population growth in Canada, like if you look at the birth rate, I think Canada has lowest birth rate across the OECD countries. I think they have like 1.26 child per woman. That's the birth rate of Canada. So when you look at that birth rate and then you try to predict the population growth, it's not sustainable. And for an economy to grow, you have to have population growth at the same time. So that's the necessary thing for Canada, is to basically bring more people into the country so that they can start paying taxes. Because one thing is funded liabilities and the other thing is unfunded liabilities. So unfunded liabilities are pensions, healthcare. So when these older Canadians are now getting older, and then when they retire, somebody has to pay their pension and their old age pension and healthcare cost. So you need people to work and then pay taxes to contribute into that, right? So the government cannot actually pay from their allocated funds. They need continuous influx of people who can continue to pay taxes to sustain that. So I wanted to clarify that that's the reason why Canada needs immigration. Now, of course, immigration has to be controlled, and you have to basically bring quality people in order to grow your economy. So unfortunately, the way they ran the immigration policies in the last, I should say, 2-3 years has been very poor. And because of that, we're seeing a lot of backlash from the society. So we're seeing the political parties like Liberal, they are facing a lot of challenges from their voters, and they may not get the voting in their favor in the next election. So I think the government is changing their instance to kind of slow the immigration, reduce the numbers of visa applications that they're going to process in this year, and they are basically projecting that they are going to cut immigration targets for the next 3 years. And I think this is a political thing because they will continue to ramp up, after election as well, because they need immigration to sustain. Now, the impact for this is it's going to slow down the rental demand,
yes.
right? Because the rental boom that we saw.
Because those students, they were actually taking the houses, right?
So, because when the new immigrants comes in, especially the students, they rent out properties, especially in the university town, and that actually create a boom in those towns, right? So what we're seeing, all those colleges and universities where they are located, we saw a big boom in those towns. Now they're going through a bust, where those immigrants are moving out. Some of the students are going back. So that means less rental demand. And of course, when they live in those towns, they also pay for food and groceries and transport as well. So all of these segments of the economy will struggle as well. So you will see a slowdown in the transportation, you'll see a slowdown in the rental demand across the country, because of course when less people are coming in, so less people are actually going for a rental property.
But I don't know where suddenly those people, they disappear.
So not everybody will go back. So I think this is one of the government plan is,
because every day, like I have my own so many listings, but there are not many tenants available. Like, where did they go?
So some will go back, like, because when you look at the overall immigration influx, majority of them were students or temporary work permit holders. So if they could not find a path to renew their visa, some will go back. Some will find another way,
Maybe they went to America?
Some are crossing illegally into U.S. borders. I think you have seen some news as well, right? And some will try to stay here by doing other things like, getting married or anything. So I think not everybody will go back, but I think let's assume 20 to 30% people will go back. And then some will try to find another way to kind of stay in Canada. So I think overall, that means the new influx is not coming. So that the growth that we saw in terms of rental demand, that is reaching a plateau. And from here, it's going to drop because there's not many new people coming in. And the existing people are also trying to move away. maybe they are going into the other provinces, where, of course, you can find some, low-level cash-only jobs. And yeah,
Sharing with people,
exactly.
friends.
So of course, Canada is so big, so people can actually try to hide and then move into other
And
provinces
in
as
summer,
well.
even they can hide in a field,
Exactly. Yeah.
So in today's show, we have discussed which challenges Canadians and Canadian businesses are facing currently and how we can tackle them. And I will come with another good topic in my next episode. And thank you so much, Yasin, for coming today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, and hope to see you in my another episode.
Hopefully. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
आपके दांतों के बेहतरीन इलाज के लिए ब्रैम्पटन में खुल गया है DR डेंटिस्ट्री। लेटेस्ट टेक्नोलॉजी और AI टेक्नोलॉजी के जरिए दांतों की बीमारियों की तशखीस की जाती है और दांतों का डिजिटल एक्सरे और स्कैनिंग की जाती है। दांतों की वाइटनिंग, क्लीनिंग या दांतों में तार डलवानी हो तो तशरीफ लाइए DR डेंटिस्ट्री। बच्चों और सीनियर्स के लिए कैनेडियन डेंटल केयर प्लान की सहूलत भी दस्तयाब है। अपनी मुस्कुराहट को मजीद खूबसूरत बनाने के लिए आइए DR डेंटिस्ट्री, लोकेशन 332 मेन स्ट्रीट नॉर्थ, यूनिट 1, ब्रैम्पटन, और कॉल 905-9